Our next question comes from Emmanuel Prado, who says, "Hey coach, I'm a big fan of your channel, thank you. I have a question that really gets to me. How can I learn to fight if I'm afraid of hurting other people? It's genuinely weird for me, the idea that for me to succeed as a martial artist, I need to be able to hurt someone. How do I deal with that?" I think the overwhelming majority of people who call themselves martial artists on this planet have never actually hurt anyone before. I wouldn't be too worried, man. It's a different thing if you want to be a fighter. Because fighting is hurting people. Not everybody needs to be a fighter. Not everybody needs to get in a cage and do professional or amateur mixed martial arts. Not everybody needs to box in a boxing ring. Not everybody needs to hurt people. There are tons of martial artists who practice their martial art and have never ever once fought anybody and never ever will. And maybe you're afraid of people sticking the label on you. Oh, you're just a McDojo. You're not legit. You don't really know how to fight. You're a fake. You're a fraud. You're a phony. Because you don't enact violence on other human beings. In a recent video where I discussed some rule changes that I would make to the UFC, I asked the viewers, what rule changes would you make? And a bunch of them said, I would include headbutts. And I asked a number of them, well, would you be willing to compete under that rule set? And not very many of them were. They would be willing to watch other people headbutt each other into oblivion, but they wouldn't be willing to do it. Funny how that works, right? We are mesmerized by the violence, by the spectacle, by the blood, by the action, but we don't want to be a part of it. We want to spectate from a safe distance. We want to live vicariously through the actions of others. I get questions or comments like the one you phrased pretty well in that question from new students all the time. Especially young women. They come into my class and I will ask them to throw a punch and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to hurt you. And I'll be like, you won't. You can't. It's not going to happen. You could give me your best shot. You will not hurt me. And then they will repeat, I don't want to hurt you. You can't hurt me. You won't hurt me. It's not going to happen. If you tried, it would never happen in a million years. Throw the punch. But I don't want to hurt you. At that point I realize it's not a matter of them not wanting to hurt someone. It's some other psychological issue. Hurting other people is hard. It's difficult, man. You should read the book On Killing. It's a fascinating book, a study of warfare, of killing in wars. And the fact of the matter is, throughout most of the history of the world, wars were pretty bloodless because soldiers had a pretty hard time killing each other. They would often shoot over the other guy's heads or stuff round after round after round into their gun and pretend to shoot. Because there is a strong revulsion to violence, to enacting violence on other human beings for most people. At least as far as close-range combat goes, if we can see that other person in the eyes, it's like, oh man, this is tough, this is hard. And a lot of people in the modern world have the same dilemma with their food, for example. People who didn't grow up on a farm and have never wrung the neck of a chicken. People who never hunted or fished or killed an animal for food have a hard time with this. They have no problem eating a chicken sandwich, but if you ask them to go chop that chicken's head off, pluck the feathers out, and prepare it so you can make a chicken sandwich, they'd be like, ah. because they've never done it. They don't understand what that even means. It's complicated on the one hand, and it's quite simple on the other. Combat sports are a nice intermediary, and I'll tell you why. Because even though you are forced into the fray, and you have no other alternative than to engage in violence, it's consensual violence. It's respectful violence. It's violence with a certain semblance of order to it, rather than just chaotic violence. What I get from your question, and also from, all those ladies who come to the class and they're like, I don't want to hurt you, and they're all sheepish and timid, is that they don't want to go down a dark path they can't return from. They don't want to fundamentally change as a human being. They don't want to get some extra baggage and take that home with them. They want to be able to leave it there and move on. A cage fight is an excellent way, I think, to have that experience, to engage in ritual combat. The violence is real. The damage is real. The danger is very real. But the situation of the combat is ritual. Here's a guy. Here's a complete stranger. They're going to fight for arbitrary reasons because we decided. Just to see who's a better fighter. Go. It's ritual combat. As opposed to, here's an evil guy out on the streets who wants to jump on you and murder you and steal your things and rape you. And that's a whole different situation. Psychologically, physically, obviously, but psychologically, clearly. Or here's two guys getting mad at each other. They're angry, they hate each other, they want the other one to die. That's different. That's not ritual combat either. But the beauty of ritual combat is it takes away that emotional attachment to violence. And it gives you the experience of punching someone in the face, kicking someone in the head, hurting someone with their consent. It's weird, right? It's definitely not for everybody. And maybe it's not for you. Everybody should train. Not everybody needs to fight. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train. Brought to you by xmartial.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. That's xmartial.com. High quality training gear and fight apparel.